Chapter 7 of On Our Selection by Steele Rudd. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Son of the Exiles. Chapter 7 Cranky Jack. It was early in the day. Traveller after traveller was trudging by Shingle Hut. One who carried no swag halted at the rails and came in. He asked Dad for a job.
"I dunno,"
Dad answered.
"What wages would you want?"
The man said he wouldn't want any. Dad engaged him at once. And such a man! Tall, bony, heavy-jawed, shaven with a reaping hook apparently. He had a thick crop of black hair, shaggy, unkempt, and full of grease, grass, and fragments of dry gum leaves. On his head were two old felt hats, one sewn inside the other. On his back a shirt made from a piece of blue blanket, with white cotton stitches striding up and down it like lines of fencing. His trousers were gloom itself. They were a problem, and bore reliable evidence of his industry. No ordinary person would consider himself out of work while in them. And the newcomer was no ordinary person. He seemed to have all the woe of the world upon him. He was as sad and weird-looking as a widow out in the wet. In the yard was a large heap of firewood, remarkable truth, which Dad told him to chop up. He began, and how he worked! The axe rang again, particularly when it left the handle, and pieces of wood scattered everywhere. Dad watched him chopping for a while, then went with Dave to pull corn. For hours the man chopped away without once looking at the sun. Mother came out. Joy! She'd never seen so much wood cut before. She was delighted. She made a cup of tea and took it to the man, and apologised for having no sugar to put in it. He paid no attention to her. He worked harder. Mother waited, holding the tea in her hand. A lump of wood nearly as big as a shingle flew up and shaved her left ear. She put the tea on the ground and went in search of eggs for dinner. We were out of meat. The kangaroo dog was lame. He had got ripped the last time we killed. The tea remained on the ground. Chips fell into it. The dog saw it. He limped towards it eagerly and dipped the point of his nose in it. It burnt him. An aged rooster strutted along and looked sideways at it. He distrusted it and went away. It attracted the pig, a sow with 9 young ones. She waddled up and poked the cup over with her nose. Then she sat down on it while the family joyously gathered round the saucer. Still the man chopped on. Mother returned without any eggs. She rescued the crockery from the pigs and turned curiously to the man. She said, "Why, you've let them take the tea." No answer. She wondered. Suddenly, and for the 50th time, the axe flew off. The man held the handle and stared at the wood heap. Mother watched him. He removed his hats and looked inside them. He remained looking inside them. Mother watched him more closely. His lips moved. He said, "Listen to them! They're coming! I knew they'd follow!" "Who?" asked Mother, trembling slightly. "They're in the wood," he went on. "Ah, I've got 'em! They'll never get out! Never get out!" Mother fled, screaming. She ran inside and called the children. Sal assisted her. They trooped in like wallabies. All but Joe. He was away earning money. He was getting a shilling a week from Maloney for chasing cockatoos from the corn. They closed and barricaded the doors, and Sal took down the gun, which Mother made her hide beneath the bed. They sat listening anxiously and intently. The wind began to rise. A lump of soot fell from the chimney into the fireplace, where there was no fire. Mother shuddered. Some more fell. Mother jumped to her feet. So did Sal. They looked at each other in dismay. The children began to cry. The chain for hanging the kettle on started swinging to and fro. Mother's knees gave way. The chain continued swinging, A pair of bare legs came down into the fireplace. They were curled round the chain. Mother collapsed. Sal screamed and ran to the door but couldn't open it. The legs left the chain and dangled in the air. Sal called, "Murder!" Her cry was answered. It was Joe who'd been over at Maloney's making his fortune. He came to the rescue. He dropped out of the chimney and shook himself. Sal stared at him. He was calm and covered from head to foot with soot and dirt. He looked around and said,
Thought yous could keep me out, didn't you?
Sal could only look at him.
I saw yous all run in,
he was saying, when Sal thought of Mother and sprang to her. Sal shook her and slapped her and threw water on her till she sat up and stared about. Then Joe stared. Dad came in for dinner, which of course wasn't ready. Mother began to cry and asked him what he meant by keeping a madman on the place, and told him she knew he wanted to have them all murdered. Dad didn't understand. Sal explained. Then he went out and told the man to
clear.
The man simply said,
No! Go on now,
Dad said, pointing to the rails. The man smiled at the wood heap as he worked. Dad waited.
Ain't you going?
He repeated.
Leave me alone while I'm chopping wood for the missus,
the man answered, then smiled and muttered to himself. Dad left him alone and went inside wondering. Next day Mother and Dad were talking at the barn. Mother, bareheaded, was holding some eggs in her apron. Dad was leaning on a hoe. "I am afraid of him," Mother said. "It's not right you should keep him about the place. No one's safe with such a man. Some day he'll take it into his head to kill us all, and then—"
Tut, tut, woman, poor old Jack. He's as harmless as a baby.
"All right," sullenly. "You'll see." Dad laughed and went away with the hoe on his shoulder to cut burr.